Guys, welcome to Chapter 6, Season 4. In today's video, I'm going to be going over 10 solo drop spots that I believe will absolutely carry you throughout any solo tournaments or solo ranked in this season. Let's get right into it. Alright guys, so this spot that I'm landing at right now is going to be in the new biome. It's going to be called OXR Base Alpha. As you guys will see throughout this video, there's actually going to be 3 variants of this specific type of base. And I really think that these new drop spots are some of the best ones that you guys can get in this new season. This POI is going to have over 10 chests, which is pretty good for a solo drop spot. And considering the fact that it's also going to have slurp barrels in a really small area, so it won't take you too long to loot, I think that's a big positive. On top of that, it's also going to have one of these OXR chests that you guys can open for better loot. It's going to be giving you weapons like the Lead Spitter 3000, which is going to be one of the new ones in this season. Basically, it's just a glorified minigun. On top of that though, mobility like the Shockwave and the Crashpad Jr. in the game, so you can get that from these chests. And then also items like the Med Mist are back. This POI also is going to be having a good amount of metal from the various parts around it, so that's going to be a positive. And of course, it's going to have a good amount of stone and wood from the trees and stones around the area. Overall, OXR Base Alpha is a really solid drop spot. I would recommend you guys land here if you're looking for a slightly lower key spot that you guys are going to try to land at in solo game modes. Alright guys, so as you can see, this next drop spot is going to be located right near Canyon Crossing. This is going to be called the OXR Epsilon Base. Similar to the last POI, this is going to be a pretty similar layout. Going to have over 10 chests. It's going to be in pretty much the same layout in terms of being that OXR base. However, the main difference here is that you guys can easily leave the building and then fight these big bug things that are right here. As you can see, they're not going to have too much health, so they are pretty easy to defeat. And when they do die, they drop a fair amount of loot. They drop these bug blasters, which are going to be really powerful weapons. When you release them, they basically unleash a very powerful blast that's able to do a ton of damage to small bugs like that and also players as well. But guys, it's also going to be having the slurp barrels and, like I said, the same amount of chests. Of course, you're going to be able to get a good amount of metal as well from the surrounding areas. And on top of that, you can also get, once again, wood and brick from the wood and bricks around the area. The main benefit of these POIs is that they're going to be in the new biome, so it's a positive that you're going to be around a lot of the new players in the area. But also another positive is the fact that they're going to have access to all of these new season weapons. You guys are going to be able to get that stuff from these chests. I really would recommend these OXR bases. The Epsilon variant is pretty good as well because you're really close to Canyon Crossing and you can easily push in there to W key afterwards. And guys, once you kill all of the different bugs, you're probably going to rank up and get a drop pod, which drops when you're tier B. If you open this, it's going to give you a good amount of loot and that's going to be pretty helpful. Anyways, that's why I would recommend something like the OXR Epsilon base right here. Alright guys, so POI number 3 is going to be the OXR base. This is going to be the Theta variant. Similar to the last one, it's going to be having those bug sort of organisms that you guys are going to be able to kill for better weapons. And similar to the last 2 places, it's also going to have those nice crates that you guys can open for good loot, and you're going to be having around 10 chests as well. So the biggest benefit of this POI also, apart from these bugs, is the fact, once again, you guys are going to be pretty close to major POIs. Obviously, the last one was pretty close to Canyon Crossing. This one is going to be decently close to Kappa Kappa Factory and then Outpost Enclave. So you guys will easily be able to rotate and eliminate players if you're trying to W key. And if you're not, you're also just able to rotate pretty passively. Obviously, the point of defending and playing at this place is killing all these bugs to try and get high quality loot. It's kind of just a really fast way to get really good loot, in my opinion. And guys, like I said, once you eliminate 20 bugs, it's going to be having a drop pod that comes down with really high quality loot. There's going to be 2 of them, actually. One of them slightly lower tier loot. The second one's going to be slightly higher tier. But guys, this has the same benefits as all of the previous OXR bases. I definitely recommend you guys consider one of these POIs if you're looking for a good solo spot. Someplace that's not going to be too contested, but a place that will still have a decent amount of action. Now guys, before I go on to my final named POI drop spot for this video that I like to go over at the end of every solo drop spots video, I want to go over some POIs that are still in the game from previous seasons but are still very viable solo drop spot options for you. The first one of those is going to be called Placid Patties and is located near the resistance base at the north section of the map. It's going to be pretty solid. It's going to be having around 10 chests. You guys can land up here, get a really good amount of loot very quickly because the area is really small and you're unlikely to be contested. A pretty decent amount of wood you guys can get from here and brick as well. Metal may be a bit scarce, you might need to rotate to actually find a good amount. But like I said, the high volume of chests in a small amount of area is going to be really beneficial for you guys who are wanting to get a good amount of loot really quickly. I think it's a really solid drop spot, definitely consider it. It also is going to be having a slurp truck so you guys are easily able to get shield. And of course, like I said, you're unlikely to be contested, so it's going to be pretty quick in and out if you guys do land here. Definitely would recommend it. Now guys, the next returning POI is going to be known as Rogue Repairs Black Market. This place is going to be pretty solid for those of you guys who want to have a really tiny, quick solo drop spot to land at. It's going to be having some slurp barrels so you guys won't need to waste too much on shield. And on top of that, going to be having around 4 to 6 chests depending on spawn rates. Of course, guys, this is a pretty tiny spot, so it's unlikely you're going to be contested. However, it's going to be fairly central, so rotation won't be too difficult out of it. Also, guys, on top of that, you're going to be able to get a decent amount of metal, like I said, from the slurp barrels, from the surrounding little areas that you guys are going to be able to farm. And of course, that's really going to contribute to your guys' overall solo game success, because metal is the most important material and the scarcest one to get. So guys, overall, pretty solid drop spot here at the Rogue Repairs Black Market. Definitely would recommend it for those of you guys who want to have a solid solo drop spot that's not too contested, that's also fairly central, so easy for rotation. Now guys, another returning spot, this is going to be called Martial Maneuvers. It's going to have over 15 chests, so that large amount is really going to help you guys getting a large amount of loot very quickly. Also going to have a serve truck so you guys can just land and automatically get that 100. And of course, like I said, a ton of chests, so the amount of loot you guys are going to get in a short amount of time is going to be absolutely insane. And guys, yes, obviously this drop spot is going to be slightly further from the center of the map. It's going to be pretty north. However, what I would genuinely recommend is if you guys land here, get as many mobility items as you can, use them to rotate very effectively, or on top of that, you guys can simply just move around to the local areas where there are going to be launch pads installed in the map permanently, and use those for rotation. I think nowadays, guys, especially in 2025 and in Chapter 6, I don't think that rotation from a place on the edge of the map is that big of a deal, especially in stuff like simple solo game modes. If you're in FNCS trios, it's a bit different. However, I still think this drop spot's very viable considering the amount of chests, where it is, how much loot it actually has, and how you guys are able to conserve your shield considering the fact that it's going to have a serve truck. And like I said, there's going to be a launch pad for easy rotation, so that's why I would recommend Martial Maneuvers as a great drop spot. So guys, in terms of the next recurring drop spot, this is going to be Sakura Stadium. Located on the very western portion of the map, you guys are going to be pretty far from the local areas of the center of zone. But of course, it's going to have a good amount of chests coming in at around 15-ish. You guys can get really high quality loot very quickly as per usual. And of course, the biggest benefit of this drop spot, like I always like to choose, is going to be the amount of metal you guys can get pretty quickly. There's going to be a good amount of metal objects you guys can farm. You guys can easily use that to max out on metal very quickly. And of course, you're also able to get a good amount of wood from these trees and then brick from the local bricks around the area. Overall, I'd recommend you guys land here, loot as quick as possible, and then use the permanent launch pad in order to rotate throughout this map. All you guys have to do for that is just head over to the back of the POI and then pop the launch pad and use it to rotate. So guys, the second to last recurring drop spot is going to be known as Yukina Boardwalk. Like I said, this is going to be also pretty far from the center of the map, located on the western half. Not too far from the Sakura Stadium, like I mentioned before. But this place is going to be pretty solid, going to be having around 15 chests. You guys can obviously land here, loot up fairly quickly, get a good amount of metal from the surrounding areas, obviously get a good amount of wood and brick from the surrounding areas as well. A great thing you can get metal from is going to be these RVs right here. You guys can farm all of them for pretty much max metal as a solo player. And of course, it is unlikely you guys will be contested here. If you are, it's pretty simple to play off spawn. But regardless, once you guys are done looting up and practically using this drop spot to its fullest potential, just use this permanent launch pad to rotate over to the zone and try to get there as quick as possible. And now guys, the last recurring drop spot is really going to be a kind of a new drop spot because it's going to be located in the new biome, as you guys can see, and it's also going to be pretty near all of the new POIs. This is going to be called All You Can Catch. It's going to be a small little shop right in the middle of this new biome. Not going to be having too many chests, only around 5. However, considering how small the POI is, you can loot it extremely quickly and then rotate to one of those bigger, newer POIs. There's going to be a decent amount of metal from this kitchen area. You guys can probably get up to at least half of the max metal. And on top of that, guys, it's going to be having a decent amount of chests in a small amount of area, like I mentioned before. And it's very central, so rotation won't really be a problem. But if you guys want to consider one of the old drop spots from the previous seasons that's going to be in the new biome that you guys can easily use to rotate to these new POIs, I definitely recommend All You Can Catch. Now guys, you know how I like to end off all of my videos for drop spots. This is going to be a contested named POI. You guys are going to only land here if you're really confident in your fighting abilities and if you know exactly how to land here. This is going to be OXR HQ. I've already mentioned 3 times in this video how I'm a big fan of the OXR layout by bringing up those OXR bases. But the reason I really love this drop spot is really just because of the immense amount of metal that you're going to have from the area. Of course, you guys are also going to have really good access to these crates and these chests. That's definitely going to be a positive. However, also the fact that you're landing here means that you're probably going to be getting in a good amount of off-spawn engagements. So if you guys are in a solo catch cup or something in which you're going to need a large amount of eliminations to get points, it's a great spot to land because you guys can get really good off-spawn engagement here. You can rack up almost 10, maybe even 15 kills with the players landing here, especially considering the fact that it's a new named POI in the new season. And also, it's going to be having over 40 chests. You guys can land here and get a ton of really good loot very effectively. I also really enjoy the layout of this POI. I kind of like how there's this main sort of building you have here, and then there's going to be smaller little outside ring that you guys can land at. I just genuinely think that that layout is going to lead to a really good off-spawn engagement situation at this POI. And on top of that, guys, it's very central, really close to the new biome. You guys can easily rotate over there and pretty much do anything you need for the rest of the game in that area. Overall, I really like the OXR HQ POI. I think it's a really good named POI and the best named POI for solo drop spots in this season, in my opinion. Be sure to land here if you guys are looking for a really good contested solo drop spot that you want to try to succeed at. But guys, that is the video on 10 solo drop spots that I would recommend for you guys in this season. If you enjoyed, please let me know by leaving a comment and liking the video. But that is about it for this video, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.